Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, has declared that the use of military force alone cannot end insurgency in the country. Talking specifically on how the newly acquired Super Tucano aircraft will be deployed towards winning the war, he said, and we quote, "Someone said that when they come, all the insecurity problems will be solved. I think this is a misunderstanding of air power and its role, particularly in the kind of operations we are conducting. Yes, the Super Tucanos have brought in a lot of bite to the fight, and I can tell you for a fact that the airplanes are currently operating in the Northeast, but air power alone cannot win this war. It will take a collective effort from the military, civil society organizations, and all other stakeholders." End of quote. Joining us now to discuss this matter is a security expert and retired Air Commodore Abayomi Balogun, who is joining us to take the issues further. You're welcome. Good morning, Air Commodore Abayomi Balogun.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's my pleasure.
Good morning. Good to have you with us. What will be your assessment? Thank you very much. What will be your assessment of the security situation in Nigeria and how the military is responding, given the fact that we now have the two sets of the Tucano jets? But of course, if you put that against the background of what what's said about the efficacy that we can't rely solely on just the jets alone, what would be your own personal assessment since July when the first set came, and then since September when we had the second set? Have we made progress at all? Are we likely to win this war, even with the firepower that we now have?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the Chief of Air Staff was right in saying that the Tucano may not be the silver line, the silver bullet we've been expecting. Yes, the Tucano is a well-equipped aircraft, modern technology and all that. But then, that aircraft is one item, is one of the tools required to win the war against terror. Other components must come in. And like the Chief of Air Staff rightly said, the war against insurgency and terrorism cannot be won by military means only. It should be an all-inclusive approach. And the president signed a document, I will still say it because I kept saying it, in 2019 called the National Security Strategy. The National Security Strategy calls for an all-inclusive approach where everybody is involved. All the MDAs, NGOs, traditional rulers, religious leaders, and the civil organization, individuals are supposed to be part of it. Yes, I can see some signs that we are moving in that direction, but they are not well coordinated. The way the NSS 2019 has prescribed it is there should be a body that will look after the implementation of such strategy. So what do? We must devise another means rather than all the kinetic means. There are other strategies, there are other ways of resolving conflicts rather than the kinetic means. Yes, the Tucanos are here, but like the Chief of Air Staff said, it's just one aspect of the war. It's like you are looking at Nigeria as a whole, like a farmland. And you said this farmer should go to that farmland, that massive farmland, where you have to plant everywhere. That is what the security men are doing now. They are fighting or they are defending us everywhere, all the nooks and crannies of the nation. Now, do they have enough resources to do that? For me, from an outsider point of view, they don't. Because when you send a farmer to a farm to clear like 100 hectares of land, and you give him 10 cutlasses and 2 hoes, how long will it take him? It will take forever. But when you give him like 10 tractors, 50 tractors to do the job, then he surely will finish the job on time. But when the armed forces have equipment in piecemeal, I mean, there are other things that should go along with the Tucano. Do we have all of them? Yes, we have some. But considering the security challenges facing the nation and the armed forces in particular, I think we need more than that. That's what we call concentration of effort when we are fighting wars. You must have everything you need to do the job rightly. So I think the war is winnable. We can win it. But we must go back to the drawing board, change our strategy, change our tactics, and look for other means of reaching our destination.
Agreed. And I can imagine that making sure that as many situations where you can avoid casualties, especially civilian casualties, would be very important. I say that because there have been NAF bombings on civilians happening recently. There was 20 fishermen in Borno State who were killed by military fire, some 20 villages in Yombe. I mean, do you think, in your opinion, this is an inevitable pattern that would arise when you are fighting insecurity, or is this something that most definitely can and should be avoided?
Oh, thank you very much. It's so unfortunate because I was once a fighter pilot. And while we were fighting and flying then, we had these same kind of issues. Friendly fires, green on blue fires. When you inadvertently attack your own, it's an accident. Sometimes it's an act of God. But when we come home here and look at what is happening in the Northeast and elsewhere, it's a difficult terrain for pilots to pass through because you are fighting in an environment where you hardly can differentiate the civilians from the militias, from the bandits. They all wear all kind of uniform. They all dress alike. So how do you do that in the air? Very good. Yes, we are trained to be able to identify friends from foes, but it does happen. When we go back in history, even during the world wars, every war, there has been casualties of war on both sides, on the friendly side, on the enemy side. There had been so many, even during the Gulf War, Afghan War. I could remember there was something that happened during the Gulf War where the Americans inadvertently attacked the British troops. They lost lives. It didn't cause any diplomatic row because it was expected. We pray it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does happen. We make all attempts. The armed forces are very professional. The second one that happened around Lake Chad, that I had to ask questions on it, where some fishermen were attacked. Yes, those fishermen, Nigerians criticize everything, but then those fishermen went out of the rules on the Lake Chad. You know, when you are fighting war, there are things you do, especially to prevent casualties. They were given instruction not to fish on the Lake Chad. But these guys still went ahead and they went against the rules. Now, what do we do as the armed forces of Nigeria? Do we just clap hands and say, well done? No. We are constitutionally mandated to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria. So when the federal government says, I don't want this, who enforces? We enforce it. Unfortunately, we take the blame if anything goes wrong. But if we go back and investigate those fishermen properly, we find out they were not really fishermen. They were in disguise. They were really terrorists. That's what I would say. Enemy fires, friendly fires will occur whenever there is war. But we members of the armed forces will try as much as possible to avoid it. And we want to say that for the armed forces, especially the first attack on the civilians, yes, initially they denied it because they needed time to really investigate and be sure of their facts. And when it occurred to them that, yes, it happened, they came back and said, yes, some military will never accept that. So I think they have done well, and they will always tell us the truth. Go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Commodore. But the aspect that you mentioned about friendly fire will, that it will always happen. I mean, I get that very well. We see it every time we read about it. But then in our own case, it looks like this is coming quite often. Only in June, apart from the Lake Chad fishermen that you refer to and the other one that Adefemi mentioned, wedding guests were bombed, in Niger, in Geno, in Niger State. Will we also say that that's a case of, people in disguise, or they were terrorists, or that it's just so tough for people, the officers flying the aircraft to distinguish between real enemies, and those who are just carrying about their normal duties? Because at what point will we accept that genuine errors were made and that compensation, if possible, will have to be paid? Secondly, before you address that question, you have used the word war, which is pretty similar to what the Minister for Finance has also said, saying that we are technically at war. But then my question is, at a time like this, we are also recording successes in quotes. Should we indeed accept those as successes when we have Boko Haram members or suspected terrorists coming out in droves, handing themselves over? The president, if you recall, made reference to them in his October 1st speech, saying that more than 8,000 of them, have been reabsorbed into the society. How much of trust can we invest in these people coming out, saying that they are, hands up and they are ready to behave well and be good citizens? Are we sure that that will be a good strategy, having people come not in their hundreds but in their thousands, saying that they are reformed and they want to come back into the society? Are we not inadvertently accepting spies and terrorists back into our fold, those who can also spy on the military and make their job difficult?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a fully loaded question session. There are so many things you want answers to. But let me start with the surrendering terrorists. I think this is where I think we have to be cautious. Yes, they are surrendering. What is their motive? Yeah, they have motives. Everybody have a reason for doing whatever they are doing. So when they surrender, it's good news. It's encouraging because it's a sign that there is pressure on them and they are losing the will to fight. Yes. But then when they turn themselves in, what do we do with them? Do we say, go home and sin no more? Or we do the right thing? There are steps to reintegrating war veterans. Let me say war veterans, legal war veterans from the armed forces all over the world. There are procedures and processes to bringing them back to civility. Now you look at Boko Haram guys who had been fighting for ages. What happens to their psyche? What happened to their ability to mix up with the civil society they are coming to meet? So, what do we do with them? What should we do with them? We need to take them through the proper step of reorientation and reintegration. Now, when you do that for them who are returning, what about the host community? The civil society that will be receiving them? Do they have confidence that these guys will not become violent again? No. So you must prepare them. You must prepare the recipients of these guys and say, yes, they are born again. They will not be harmful any longer. If not, you take them back to where they belong, they will be rejected. And once they are rejected, what do? They go back to where they come from because they feel isolated. Nobody wants to talk to them because they are scared of them. So do you think we have solved any problem? No. We only tried. And then they are back to where they came from. And maybe in about 6 months, 1 year again, they will come back as repentant and they want to surrender. So my advice is that we should do the needful. Thorough profiling and thorough debriefing. Psychological sections to take the trauma of war. Yes, they are Nigerians. So we must treat them accordingly and let them be able to reintegrate into the society, and then the host community should be prepared to receive these guys, and then you can have a happy ending. If we don't do that, I'm not sure we are getting anywhere. Now, on the other one, about the current the rate of fatalities that we encounter now. Gentlemen, when last were we flying this much? It is when you fly that you have air accidents, even on the road. It is when the road traffic is high that you have road traffic accidents. So now we are flying more. We are doing so much across the nation. So it will go up, whether we like it or not. But I say, we will try. The armed forces will try not to make it too frequent. But then, can it be